on the annual budget. So if you include funding from the general fund for a program, technically you could say that's also a public hearing on that expense. And then we don't have a public hearing for establishing sewer rates. On the water side, the Public Service Commission requires an official telephonic hearing, which is basically a hearing where we have an intercom set up with PSC in Madison, and people can come to that hearing and give testimony, and they have to be sworn in. And so I guess you could say that that is an official hearing, and if you did a water program. That would be only at the time the program is established, though.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Attorney Faber?
for the public hearing for the special assessments, it's really a public hearing designed to allow property owners to clarify what they're being assessed on. For example, if the city records show that, one property owner had 100 feet of lateral that needed to be replaced, and the property owner says, wait a minute, I just had this, I know that it's only 80 feet. It would then be a trigger for the city to take a look at that. Is there, some discrepancy in what our numbers show versus what their numbers show? And so the public hearing shouldn't be focused on whether or not it's a good idea to special assess. It's really just an opportunity for individual property owners to make sure that we have the correct information upon which we're basing the special assessment.
Thank you.
Charlie?
The question I have as far as the sewer under the road replacement, why would we require that to be done?
Well, historically, we have not required it to be done up until last year. And at that time, and it's reflected in the minutes, and when we had this original meetings in April and May, staff said, based on talking with our peers in the public works sector and the administrator sector, that it is a common thing to have a program where you're replacing it within the, so that it's outside of the roadway. One reason is and I think there's different ways to look at it, but let's say we didn't televise the private side and we didn't replace that section, and that person does have a cracked pipe. Now we redo a road. Not only would our road get tore up, but we've seen where a patch repair and up to like $12,000, right? It can vary, but it's a significant more cost for the homeowner if they have to replace it.
Right, and
Pavement.
for instance on Reed Street, and typically the water lateral is in the same trench as the sanitary lateral. And remember, we only did it for half of Reed Street, because that was the only portion that we were replacing the sewer main on. And so instead of just reconnecting their own old lateral, we extended it an additional 20 feet to get to outside the roadway. So the section from south to Hine didn't have any sanitary laterals touch, only Houston to South Street. Because we're already touching it, so we can add another 20 feet, get it out of the roadway. So I would say if communities aren't touching sanitary, they're probably not touching their, the laterals. But
We strictly want to save the road for future.
laterals and right, I mean, it's easier, so like the contractor on Reed Street, they were so tight together, like literally on top of each other, for them to replace the water lateral and, to bring it out with the sanitary lateral, kind of also made their life easier.
Happened on Reed Street too, to some extent, or Hine Avenue. Happened some to that extent because the water lateral goes right over the sewer lateral, and there's a lot of incidents where the contractor put new piping in there.
Because it's gonna be faster.
They broke it.
Right,
They broke it, and they had the
it's-
contractor's expense, not the,
Correct.
but there was numerous places that they did replace the sewer lateral that was broken by the contractor. And there's a couple of Ys replaced on the old part
Yeah, so as, we actually talked about that one day, and the contractor actually broke it on purpose.
So in some instances, because it was gonna take them more time
Because it
to
was-
go around it. than
Correct,
to pay
because it
for
was
the
more
additional
efficient for the
footage.
contractor to break
Labor
it.
is
See that.
expensive.
Correct. But that's something the contractor chose to do.
Right. And paid for that cost.
But if you put a new road in, and you, like it happened on North Milwaukee Street a few years ago, they had to dig it up, put in some other sewer lines,
Yes.
and you never got the compact right,
So the,
and you got the bumps.
yeah, so just to clarify, so the primary issue there, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you have a different understanding, was what collapsed was actually the main, correct? On Milwaukee, North Milwaukee?
Yes, it was.
Was the main, not laterals. It was the main.
Yes,
And the reason, and that was not that was not lined. It was not, so that clay pipe probably could have been lined. But at that time, previous, I guess you'd say previous management decided to leave the sewer alone, not do a lining project. And they figure kind of the pounding of the machines working on the project probably caused some issues with that old pipe, and then eventually collapsed. So it wasn't the lateral, it was the main.
okay.
But that, yeah.
The other, and I'll stop here because we'll bring up the next meeting on it, but the cost of the lateral lining and the lateral replacement, there's issues that are not discussed that potentially took place on Hine Avenue that I'd like to discuss at a different time, but I'd like to have the staff go with the water if they would like to.
Yeah, I mean, really, the water is very similar. Really, just the same sort of questions, but the difference, I guess, really is the no is exactly the same for the sewer. But if you mandate the private water laterals, then the question you have to ask is, do you want it to be a city program, or do you want it to be a PSC approved program? And then again, if it's a PSC approved program, is it a utility loan through the water utility only? Or is it a loan and grant program through the water utility? And then if it's a loan and grant percentage, fixed dollars, where do funds come from? Do you want it to come from debt, cash flow, state trust fund loan, and have the water utility responsible for that debt? And then again, if it's a city program on the water side, again, it is a special charge, it is a special assessment, tax levy, grant funding. Again, that was where, was it Menasha? Offered $1,000 program on the water side from the city, $1,000 from the PSC approved water program, and then the last amount came through a loan through the water utility. So again, very similar, just if you do mandate, what are you looking at the funding to be? Are you looking at the funding program to be a city-based program or a water utility-based program?
Let somebody else speak and else. Does anyone else have questions before I babble on?
If we have any other questions on this part, otherwise, if we can back up, Charlie, and if you want to go through your next question
Well,
so that we cover it all tonight, that's fine.
I have a question on this particular point. If
Are you on water or sewer?
water.
Water,
It could be
okay.
water, it could be sewer. But Sheboygan Falls, if I'm understanding this, Director Austin, Sheboygan Falls, when they mandated the cost to do this, everybody had to do either pipe bursting, if I understand it right, or Keel had to do water pipe bursting. When everybody does that, you get a considerably lower rate for every person on the street. If it is not needed to be done, I'm not sure how that works out, but the rates go from potentially, $500 to $600 more per person's home to quite a bit less if everybody comes and pipe bursts it or has it dug out. It's a considerably, and check me on this, but it's a considerable cost if you have everybody in the street do it and you get a company to come in and bid this done. If you have individuals do it on the street, as some streets have done, then it costs different rates across the line. And then you have different timelines when it's going to be done. So if it's a mandated situation, or if you could, I guess, but if it's a mandated situation, the person knows in February when the meeting takes place, your street is going to be done, you're going to have to replace the sewer, you're going to have to replace the water, this is potentially what the cost is going to be, and it's going to be done at this particular rate, because you get company bids to come in on doing it. If you do it in an individual basis,
Yeah, it's
it
not
varies.
market pricing, yeah.
So there's a considerable, if I'm,
I don't know the amount, considerable amount versus individual, I mean, I'm sure there is a cost savings when a contractor can come in and do 20 versus come in and do one, I'm sure.
and the
there's-
holes are opened,
Well,
you know-
holes are open, their machinery's already on site, they have one home cost, so yeah, I'm sure it's cheaper what the price is,
yeah.
is it hundreds, is it, I don't know.
And that's, I'm sorry.
When you charge $750 here, when you did that road last year,
This year.
Didn't charge last
The
year.
first time it happened was.
okay,
as
when
high
you
as-
charged, did you charge everybody 750?
No.
Or
Any-
did you go by the foot?
No, we charged 750 to where we replaced main,
Yeah,
and the homeowner didn't replace their sewer lateral.
they did.
So what was it, out of, is
So
it three?
there's 4 homes on Hine Avenue that were in the sewer, the sewer main replaced area. One resident had their private plumber replace the entirety, so they did not get the $750 charge because they replaced it all the way up to the main on their own. And then the other 3 homeowners, doesn't matter on their linear footage, got the $750 charge.
Okay.
Because it was decided upon at the time, when we had the previous meetings back in 2018, that, it's not really the homeowner's fault that the sewer's on the other side of the road. So the council at that time decided to just make it one flat fee versus actual linear footage.
And it also was based on cost, approximate cost when we did the Reed Street project. At the time when we were talking about this, we were in the middle of the Reed Street project.
So we ended up doing 4 this year, that 3 we charged the $750 for, 1 we didn't because they did their own.
Yep.
And so that was 4 out of how many?
Was there 20?
24.
Yeah, 24.
Because the rest of the project, we did sewer lining, so we didn't have main replacement.
That's the point. On the sewer replacement, that's where that $750 comes into
Yeah.
play.
So 20.
So it's not all
Okay.
24.
Correct. Was everybody able to get the sewer replacement done, that they wanted to get
Well,
done?
there is one resident that I know that did not. He had a contractor lined up and his contractor backed out, and then he couldn't get a replacement done in time. But that contractor backed out on more people and they were able to find someone, so I don't know what his time frame was on, trying to reconnect with another plumber or
We
not.
definitely tried, but,
Was there a day late? I don't know, I'm not
Well,
sure.
the
But,
project-
Yeah, the one plumber had, I think, 5 homes lined up and he backed out of all of that because he was unable to do it in that time frame. And then, but, those other homes did still have it done by another plumber and he was not able to. But he could still line, he can do other mechanisms, but yes, correct.
the project, maybe off the top a little bit, but the residents on Hine Avenue are extremely pleased with the workmanship and how the project progressed on Hine Avenue. I just wanted to kind of mention that. They're very happy. The road's been paved twice now. They're just waiting for the medium, and of course, Reed Street's, never mind.
What was the donuts you bought?
Yes. That made a difference.
I want to interrupt here in the spirit of time in order to give council members a 5-minute break in between the committee of the whole and the council meeting to start at 8 o'clock. So with this, if you have any additional questions, concerns, by all means, please contact staff and Brian and Director Austin will certainly try to answer any concerns that you have. It's rather detailed, and it is very complicated since we're not engineers and laborers on the job. But with that, thank you for the attention that you brought to it. And we will have a adjournment and reconvene at 8 o'clock for the council meeting.
So move to adjourn.
Thank you. We
Alderman
have
Hanson?
we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Follow up with the staff. Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We stand adjourned till 8. Thank you.
Get up and walk a little bit.
Three,